Doubles and coffee. Faris Al-Rawi, aka Johnny Sukaran. I await your press conference today. You like to call press conference? Put on some makeup, do some push-ups, put on that tight pants and tight suit, and come and flex your muscles for the country and call a press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, why? Faris said a reign of terror is going to come out. He is the defender of CEPEP workers. Those CEPEP workers, those poor people that he was in government for 9.5 years and never shared any of his rent, his 23 million every 3 years. He never shared that with the poor people. He never shared any of his recusals with the poor people, but he come out to fight for CEPEP workers. Well, Faris, court is a very serious thing. You see, many of you all would ask, but what happened? How the PNM does accuse UNC of corruption, and nothing ever reached criminal prosecution or charge or anything because you need evidence. However, in the case of PNM, court and nice. They want to pretend that you're going to court to protect CEPEP contractors that Foster called PNM citizens, whose contracts had existing time on it, some up to 18 months still to go, and you rush to go and extend it another 3 years, all up to 2029, committing the taxpayers, you the people, to $1.4 billion. And the key is, without cabinet approval. You cannot expend taxpayers' money without cabinet approval, with the rationale, the reasoning, the approval, the recommendation, the agreement, the confirmation of cabinet to spend taxpayers' money, or else it's illegal, illegitimate, and criminal. This is not a parlor. The money does not belong to the cabinet ministers and those who are getting their salary to run ministries. That's why they are permanent secretaries. That's why there's the public service. That's why there's process and procedure. In this case, the cabinet secretariat. And already also in a previous Doubles and Coffee, I read out for you what purported to be a CEPEP board note saying that cabinet had approved and a cabinet had agreed without attaching the pink piece of paper, the confirmed minute showing a cabinet decision. A cabinet decision is not communicated by hearsay, he say, she say, them say, listen to he, I believe he, I don't believe she. There is a process, and if a board note is to be approved, especially commit $1.4 billion, then the cabinet minute that confirmed the decision and has the cabinet note that was discussed by the cabinet, approved by the cabinet. By the way, as I say, not Stuart Young, you're very silent. You were the selected prime minister. How are you so quiet? You're going to eat roti in Santa Cruz? You're walking in your short pants on the beach? Call a press conference, Stuart Young, you and Faris. And now, ladies and gentlemen, court is a serious thing. Read all your articles today. Don't buy them newspaper, but read the article. This one I'm going to read first is from Penpoint Solutions by Rhonda Dowlatt, senior journalist. And it says, Faris Al-Rawi implicated in $1.4 billion CEPEP contract scandal. Court documents allege cabinet was misled. Kenson Energy, right, forget that, Kenson, I'm not interested in no Kenson Energy. Former Minister of Rural Development and Local Government Faris Al-Rawi has been directly implicated in a widening scandal surrounding the CEPEP Company Limited, involving the alleged misrepresentation of cabinet approval for the extension of hundreds of contractor agreements, an act now linked to an estimated $1.4 billion in taxpayer exposure. In a sworn affidavit dated July 15, 2025, filed in the High Court in support of a lawsuit brought by the Eastman Enterprises Limited, EEL, against CEPEP, the company's current chairman, Joel Edwards, claims that former CEO Keith Eddy had advised him the controversial 3-year contract extensions had been approved by Cabinet via a note brought forward by Al-Rawi. The matter relates to a 2025 CEPEP decision to extend 367 contractor agreements by 3 years, a move later reversed under new executive leadership. Eastman, one of the affected contractors, is now suing for breach of contract. The affidavit states that such a letter was issued only after assurances was allegedly given that Cabinet had approved the extensions. However, the affidavit goes further. Edwards claims that after assuming the chairmanship, he sought formal documents of the Cabinet's approval and was advised by CEPEP's new CEO that no such Cabinet minute or note exists. This directly challenges the legal foundation on which the letters of comfort were issued and raises critical questions about how the process was initiated in the first place. WhatsApp conversations disclosed by former CEO Keith Eddy further deepened the controversy. Eddy, responding to Edwards' claim that there had been a mistaken belief in Cabinet approval. That's an amazing one. A mistaken belief. How you reach a mistaken? Let me do editorialize it. All you listen for all yourself. Including messages allegedly from Edwards referencing Al-Rawi's pressure on CEPEP to engage more contractors in April 2025, just weeks before the general election. In one message, Edwards purportedly warned Eddy not to trust Al-Rawi, calling him a liar, while in another, Edwards had allegedly instructed the board to act on what he claimed was Cabinet's endorsement. Also referenced in conversation involving Sadiq Hussain, a former change manager at the ministry and described by Eddy as Al-Rawi's right-hand man. Al-Rawi, you have plenty right-hand man, boy. You are right-hand man who end up as CEO of WASA without the requisite degree and then had to go and study to get a degree. You are right-hand man beside you. You are right-hand man under you. You are right-hand man down south. How come you are so much right-hand man? Al-Rawi? The situation has calculated deception that manipulated CEPEP's internal governance and misled its board. Eddy, appointed during the PNM administration, has since stated his intention to report the matter to the Fraud Squad and the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau. The Eastman lawsuit goes on, right? CEPEP, meanwhile, is expected to mount a defense based on non-existence of legal authority, meaning no Cabinet approval, right? It continues. In The Guardian today, there's an article on page, not seeing the page, but this one is by Akash Samaru, right? Senior reporter, producer Akash Samaru at cnc3.co.tt. In a significant development, Al-Rawi, I want to see a press conference today, you know. I put on my suit and thing and sit down and wait with my pen and paper. Look at pencil here, right? Al-Rawi, Johnny Sukaran, press conference man. Penny Beckers, what say you? In a significant development, in the CEPEP court case, Chief Executive Officer Keith Eddy has claimed he was pressured by former local government minister Faris Al-Rawi to approve the mass renewal of contractor contracts without Cabinet approval just days before the April 28 general election. Eddy, in a sworn affidavit under threat of perjury, sworn affidavit. Man, don't lie in there. It's only PNM lie more than lie on affidavit and perjure themselves. Said such a move was unprecedented during his 9-year tenure at the state-owned company. He's also challenging an affidavit by former CEPEP chairman Joel Edwards, who denied that Cabinet approval was required. Good luck to you. We already have from the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, that for something like that, for that expenditure, cabinet approval is required. Is required. No taxpayers' dollars could be expended and committed like that without cabinet approval. It's illegal, illegitimate, and criminal. Eddie has disputed that claim, accusing Edwards of misrepresentation. In his affidavit, Eddie said the proposed contract extension would have cost the state estimated $1.4 billion, and given the scale of the expenditure, prior cabinet approval was necessary, particularly since the contracts were to be extended for up to 3 years, not just one. He said his caution was influenced by May 2024 accusation that CEPEP had engaged in unjustified, uncontrolled spending without proper consent. According to Eddie, the Central Audit Committee of the Ministry of Finance had allegedly uncovered and reported major discrepancies. Eddie said he informed Edwards that he would not be proceeding with a blanket extension of contracts without cabinet approval. He also claimed he refused to engage with an individual described as Al-Rawi's right-hand man, who had allegedly sought to facilitate the process. Well, Al-Rawi right-hand man, you call a press conference sooner. All the PNM call press conference. I felt as if I was being pressured into extending the contracts without cabinet approval, despite my express view that this was necessary, Eddie said. Once cabinet approval was granted, I would have had no difficulty in implementing the decision. He argued that since CEPEP is fully state-owned, committing $1.4 billion without proper authorization would have been unethical, if not illegal. Well, yes, illegal too, Eddie. It would obviously be unreasonable for such a transaction to proceed without the government having any knowledge of it because of the implications for the national budget. Hey, Dan Paul, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, and Kobo Sweat, Minister of Finance, what say you? Call a press conference and tell me now, could they do that? Could a CEPEP board commit your Ministry of Finance, you as Minister of Finance, to $1.4 billion without your knowledge and without cabinet knowledge and without cabinet approval? Vishnu Dan Paul? Pressure from Minister. Eddie further claimed that in the run-up to the general election, he came under intense pressure from Al-Rawi and others to add new contractors and assist certain companies. He said he repeatedly asked for documentation or proof that Cabinet or the Ministry of Finance had approved such changes. He did not wish to become a fall guy. According to Eddie, in April, the month of the general election, Al-Rawi called him multiple times, demanding that new contractors be added to the CEPEP program. I was extremely concerned about his aggressive and demanding nature because I was being asked to add these contractors without any correspondent increase in funding, far less approval from the Ministry of Finance, he said. Eddie alleged that whenever he requested Al-Rawi put the instruction in writing, the minister would get angry and never did so. Eddie attached a screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation allegedly between himself and Edwards on April 3rd, in which Edwards wrote, "Minister, tell me you're giving him trouble." Eddie responded, "He wants to put in new contractors without approval. He said that he spoke to the finance minister and it was approved, but no evidence was provided." To that, Edwards allegedly replied, "He may not be telling the truth," being diplomatic. Eddie replied, "I know he's not telling the truth." Faris Al-Rawi, we await your press conference. Come and talk some Queen's English. Come and skin up and blow up your chest. Faris Al-Rawi. And yes, I want you going to court and bully too, and shout down too, and give instructions. Go. And to all of you citizens, you now know and you continue to know to leave Faris Al-Rawi, Johnny Sukaran, and the whole PNM band of corrupt thieves right where they are. Bless.